want you guys seeing my house and making fun of me. So we bought our house specifically for the location. It's a relatively small lot, but all of the surrounding area is farmland that you can no longer build on. So I essentially have one neighbor and everything else is just open space. So even though the lot's only an acre and some change, it feels like it's every bit of 10 and kind of feels like you're in the middle of nowhere, even though just a few miles down the street's everything that you need. So the location is perfect. And before putting an offer in on the house, called everyone that needed to be called in regards to making sure that I could get a building permit. I was told I would be able to build a garage no problem. The conversation went as good as you could expect. They went over all of the, the stuff. They put up all of the drawings and everything for the house, the land, the neighbors' houses, all of it. And it was just like, yeah, you can just build that, no problem. But after buying the house and submitting our first kind of attempt at getting a building permit is when kind of all hell broke loose. There's kind of two big problems. One was all of the building restriction lines and the crazy kind of distances that they wanted from those. And then the second one was to do with trees. And then ironically enough, the only place that they would approve for the building to go required taking down the most trees. So yeah, it was an experience. Without question, the worst part about the whole thing, aside from how long it would take each time there was a revision to get an answer on it, was that they just simply wouldn't help tell you where they would approve it. And what was frustrating about that is it would have saved everybody time on both ends of the spectrum. Like, it would have helped them out just to be like, here, put it right here, we'll leave you alone. And ultimately ended up having to pay a company a truckload of money to handle it all, because it was basically everything was kind of like in lawyer talk and you couldn't make any sense of it. And to make things even crazier is all of the like rules and regulations changed like several times during the process, making it harder and harder for like each month that went on. So we were like a month and a half shy of 2 years and nearly $10,000 in costs associated with this, but finally got a permit to build a garage on my own property.
Party wiener.
You see that line right there? Me neither. So that's the imaginary property line, and I'm told I have to be 60 or 65 feet away from that so that I don't disturb the surrounding property. It's like 400 miles of literally nothing. So the setback over here where there is actually a bunch of stuff is 30 feet or 35 feet. So, and then the way that the house is oriented on the property is a little bit weird, which kind of changes which setbacks are 35 or whatever it is and which ones are 60. And the way that actually makes the most sense would have worked in my favor, but they're considering the main road and not the private road, like where the front of the house sits, even though it's the side of the house. None of it will ever make any sense to me, but apparently it is what it is and there's nothing you can do about it. But I explained that there's literally nothing on this side, and if we could change the orientation of the house to what makes sense and do 30 feet here and 60 feet over there, where again it makes the most sense, things would have laid out way better. But instead the garage has to go in like legitimately the worst possible spot on the property. But it is what it is. At this point, you could have put the garage on top of the house. I would have been okay with it, just to get this whole show on the road. So I have to be 65 feet from this side of the property as well. You can see there's nothing but open land and trees. This is the side of the house that would make the most sense for the building to go. Even though there's nothing over there, I still had to be 60 whatever feet away from this side of the property line, which ultimately put the garage directly on top of the house, to where it was too close for them to even like approve that, because there has to be a certain distance between the house and the garage. So this wouldn't work either. I think it's easy to say that traditionally the garage would usually go behind the house, but the house is actually as far back as it can go, so we're not allowed to put anything behind the house either. So ultimately the stupid garage just ends up directly in the front yard. It would have made way more sense to me if they would have not approved where they did approve the building to go, just because it's so stupid. But I guess they're far more concerned with the imaginary property lines, even though there's nothing surrounding it than anything. The one thing I will say, though, is that throughout this whole process, aside from the dancing around every question and not answering anything directly, everybody has been as absolutely as nice as can be, even calling the inspection office to get inspections going. The nicest people you've ever talked to. The inspector, super nice, and actually going through the list of all the inspections that I needed, he started apologizing to me and talking about how half of the stuff that I have to do is like new as of like the last, I don't remember if it's 6-8 months, something like that, less than a year. So like most of the pain in the ass stuff is all new. We bought this house like specifically for the location. I think I might have mentioned that already. And part of the draw of living here is just how nice everything is, and crap's not just stacked on top of one another and everything's spaced out. So there's for sure an element that I appreciate their inspection process, but like at some point there needs to be a little bit of, I don't want to call it common sense, but like, I don't know, practicality maybe should matter a little bit more than imaginary lines. I don't know. This is the edge of my driveway, and exactly 30 feet away is a neighbor's building that's way bigger than what I'm building. So just the irony of that is we're allowed to build garages on top of each other's garages, but we're not allowed to build in the direction where there's literally nothing. So I don't know, none of it makes any sense to me. This is going to be the driveway. And here's where the building is going to go. Now if I showed you where this went in relationship to my house, you'd see why I'm so confused, but I don't want you guys seeing my house and making fun of me. So this is down to basically within like 1 or 2 feet of as large as I'm allowed to build, and also that's how tight it is on where the building is allowed to go. So this is the one and only spot on the property that they would approve any structure to be built. So the builder is actually coming by to pick up a deposit. Christ, I don't remember if it's this afternoon or tomorrow. And at that point, a couple weeks to get materials and about a week to build it. So hopefully I'll have some updates on this pretty soon. Another part that's kind of ironic about this is I sold my GTR probably 6.5 years ago, essentially to build this. And I've just been sitting on that money waiting. And with everything going on in the world, the inflation and everything else, the money I set aside for it is worth about half of what it was before. So this kind of was something that was previously paid for a long time ago, and now I need to essentially double that money, but it is what it is. The other thing that's kind of crazy is I've gotten a couple, 2-3 quotes on having epoxy floors done, because it makes such a big difference, and not just the like cheap Home Depot crap that peels up in 6 weeks, but having epoxy floor installed is actually more expensive than having all of the cement work done, installed, prepped, you know, finished, all of that, rebar the works. So as much as I don't have time to even fool with this thing at all at the moment, and I'll probably have as many contractors or whatever do as much as possible. Sounds like the builder's going to handle most of it. I actually found the one builder that seems to do all of it, not just farm out each aspect of it. So he should do most of it. But based off of the price, I think I'm going to be learning how to do epoxy floors myself. I just can't justify spending nearly $20,000 to essentially paint the floor. It's crazy. Oh, and everybody asked me if I'm going to be moving the shop here. Absolutely not. No chance in all of hell. One, the county would shut me down immediately. Absolutely no commercial work's allowed to be done here. And two, I just don't want that many people coming to my house. It's too nice and peaceful out here. Even if we tried to build like a soundproof room to enclose the dyno to not make dyno noise out here, just starting up race cars and taking them off the trailer to drive them in would just not be cool at all to my neighbors. So this is 100% for personal use, and probably set up a space to film some videos so I don't have to drive an hour each time I make a video for you guys. Alright, so any of you guys that have built something like this, I would actually love to hear the things that you wish you did that you didn't, or the things you would have done differently, any type of advice like that, because it's go time. Hopefully in the next video they'll actually be framing this thing.